Welcome to the IRONMAN Insider, brought to you by Maurten. I cannot tell you how excited I am for the year ahead with this new podcast and all the great chats we are destined to have this season. I'm your host, Matt Laidlow, and I've been wanting to start a podcast with IRONMAN for a while now, and there's no better time than this year with the new IRONMAN Pro Series. On this podcast, we're going to dive into everything IRONMAN, the culture, the lifestyle, the personalities, and of course, the competition. We'll be chatting with the biggest names in the sport and highlighting up-and-coming athletes you should keep an eye on, especially during this thrilling first season of the IRONMAN Pro Series. Now, he might no longer be able to be referred to as up-and-coming, considering he won the VinFast IRONMAN World Championship in Nice last year, but no doubt Sam Laidlow is still on the rise of what he is capable of in the sport, and I'm so stoked to have Sam as our inaugural guest. What's going on, Sam?
What's going on? Not much, just some quiet time at home, and I'm training well. Training's been relatively simple lately, which is the life I like, and yeah, no complaints. Start of the season wasn't great, but yeah, I've made a few changes in my personal life, and I think we're going in the right direction now. So yeah, all excited for the few months ahead, and especially Kona, of course.
Awesome. Good to hear it. Just offline, or before we started to hit the record button, you were talking about your little training session today. Just a little spin on the trainer?
Yeah, yesterday, technically. That's why I was saying
Yesterday,
easy.
yeah.
Today I had an easy day. But yeah, yesterday I did 4 hours at 240 watts. Yeah, that was my idea. But yeah, so did a short warm up and then stared at a screen for 4 hours and at Ironman heart rate. And yeah, I know the fitness is definitely there, although I haven't managed to show it quite so far at the start of the season. But yeah, as I said, I've actually got a big block ahead of me now, where I've got another 2 months before racing Ironman Victoria, with no traveling, no commitments, and yeah, I'm really excited to do that because it's becoming more and more difficult to do so. There's more and more racing, and to just have the time to actually make some big steps forward, I believe requires a little bit of time, maybe away from racing sometimes.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And you know, in that training, you said it was your idea. Is your dad still coaching you?
Yeah, my dad still coaches me. Yeah, we've been coaching. He's been coaching me now for, I don't know, 6-7 years since I moved back home. And yeah, but we kind of work together. I always kind of put forward what kind of ideas and what I feel I need. You know, I also have a lot of experience in the sport. I've had a few coaches, and I know my body very well. I think that's one of my biggest strengths. And yeah, and we don't have this kind of like one philosophy of training. We're definitely big into adapting and looking at what's happened and what are the limiting factors and trying to work towards them. Yeah, and I think we've got some stuff up our sleeves to make sure we win again this year.
That's awesome. Yeah, the coach-athlete relationship is at times a difficult one. Father-son relationships are a difficult one at times as well, but you guys seem to obviously blend those pretty well, especially an athlete like you. Like, you seem to be very knowledgeable. You're not just throwing stuff at the wall. But if you don't mind, you know, I'm sure some of your competitors will listen, but just curious, like, when you decide you want to do a 4-hour trainer ride at 340 watts, what are you, like you said, you have something you think you can gain from it. Like, what's that conversation like with your dad? And like, what for you, that type of workout, what weakness do you think you're working on?
Yeah, so I think in Ironman in general, if you look at most athletes, like, the limiting factor is, especially on the bike and maybe even in the swim, the limiting factor is often strength, resistance. Like, everybody there on the start line when we get to the Worlds is fit enough to ride at 340 watts. Like, it's under their threshold, you know, but it's like, who's got the strength to maintain it and who's efficient enough to do it for 4 hours. So that's our belief. But then, of course, there's compromises to that. If you just do them kind of sessions all the time, you're not going to probably do a big volume in the whole week. So then over time, maybe you lose a bit in terms of metabolic efficiency. So it's trying to find a balance of doing some good consistent training, and then every so often doing some good sessions that get you the adaptation, and trying to mix and balance them too. And then also in all three disciplines is very hard. But I think what we really focus on, and what everybody, I believe, should focus on, is just identifying their own limiting factors, because we all have different ones. I train a lot with my training partner after I came sixth in the worlds, and my dad also coaches him. And like he could probably not run for a month and still run a 2:36 or 2:37 marathon, off the
Wow.
bike. So we have very, very different limiting factors, and so what works for me won't necessarily work for someone else. But I think definitely it's important for coaches, I believe, to also hear out what the athletes' needs can be, because sometimes the athletes can know also what they need, and I think it's really important to kind of have that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I think the kind of old adage is race your strengths, train your weaknesses, something
Yeah,
like that. Yeah,
yeah,
kind of has something to do with it. But no, I love that. And I think, you can see with the way that you race, having such dominant bike rides at the World Championships, that strength resistance, as you talk about, obviously has to do with you having power at the end of the bike ride, but being able to run as fast as you're running off the bike, which is pretty darn fast, right? Like that has a lot to do with that run.
yeah. I think it's something that takes a long, long time. Strength resistance, it's built. Or for me, in my case, we've been working on it since I've been a kid, because it's always been my dream. So obviously, somebody who's just switched from racing short course, or even who's dedicated to trying to win a half Ironman, and then suddenly going to Ironman, you can't just expect to gain that kind of strength resistance in the last in 6 months or in a year even. It's a very slow progression. And even if you look at my own career in Ironman, like I would do a lot of races where like one of the first ones that I led was Ironman UK, and I kind of had like a 10
Yeah.
minute lead over Joe Skipper, or 15-minute lead even, and then it just like the wheels completely fell off, and so we knew that it was possible because I was clearly doing it. It was just like, right, year upon year, we're just going to make sure you're stronger so that you can maintain that, because already your fitness levels can put you there. But then, as I said, for other people, there might be somebody whose threshold isn't high enough, but he's got very good strength resistance, so he needs to maybe. That's for instance, that's my problem when I go down to racing half Ironman, is that I'm pushing the same power as I am pretty much in Ironman. So it's trying to get comfortable with uncomfortable, and if I was to focus more on half Ironman, I would have to just do a bit more LT2 work, and kind of almost not worry about being efficient. But at the moment, yeah, definitely my focus for the last 5-6 years has been about them last 2 hours on the Ironman bike leg, and I think that's shown. In Kona, I got caught up by Magnus and Norwegians at turnaround, and then rode back out again. So yeah, and then in Nice, I mean, Nice is a bit easier because the end of the
Right.
course is the easiest part. But I don't think even I, to be honest, didn't expect the time gap to kind of keep going out like that. So I definitely feel there's been a long term progression in trying to find for my strength to become the second part of the Ironman bike leg. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the hard part talking to somebody who's won a world championship, the Ironman distance, and been second in two tries is, especially with kind of the mentality that you have, like you talk like someone who has been doing it for a long time, right? Like
Yeah, well, I have. I
yeah,
know, I'm only 25, but I
totally.
have. I also came eighth in St George before that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and but yeah, I mean, I did my first iron distance when I was 18. So I've already been doing it 7 years of Ironman, and I think anybody who's already like professionally devoted to Ironman for 7 years will get quite good. So it's not just
Yeah.
like I did first on the scene, but yeah, the way I looked at it was that I could kind of see, even it took Jan, it took everybody like at least 5-6 years to master the long distance
Yeah.
triathlon. It's a different game, and in my eyes, I was like, okay, well, if I start this when I'm 20, when I'm actually at my peak physical age, which is often 27, 28, 29, then like I'll already have the experience under my belt, so yeah, we'll see. I don't know what that'll mean. I don't know if I'll still have the motivation to keep pushing when I'm 35. I don't know, probably not. But for now I'm loving it, and I still believe I have a lot of room for improvement. It's just, and I guess everybody feels the same way. It's just, can you improve faster than everyone else?
Yeah, and I think to me, it's that the unique part of you in that situation is not that you're like necessarily new on the scene, but the fact that it seems like you've had that mentality that you're building for further down the road, where a lot of younger guys want to, okay, I'm going to try to do this in a year or 2 years. And I think, listening to your training, obviously you've already won the world championship in Nice. Obviously you want to win in Kona as well. And I know, like, clearly talking to you and seeing how you work, like your brain is like, yeah, you want to win this year, but you're doing the things to help you win in like 4 or 5 years too, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I think somebody spoke to me about they watched, I think it was the press conference or something, the pre-race press conference in Nice, and yeah, I said something like yeah, it doesn't matter what happens this weekend. I know I'm going to win this world championship one day. It
Yeah.
just it might be this weekend, it might not. I knew I had this very clear kind of route of where we wanted to go, and we knew that route was possible. We don't know if it's going to take a year, 2 years, 3 years, and I believe everybody can make progress. But as I said again, it's how quickly you can make that progress, which is tough. And for Nice, for me, it came at. I mean, I don't feel I had a very good day, for sure, but I was at the same level as I was a year before because of various things. That I had a calf tear
Yeah.
about 2 months out, and then I got COVID in Singapore, etc. So it was, I kind of arrived there in. I'd obviously had a year's more training in me, but technically I wasn't quite as fit as where I was, I think, in Kona the year before. And yeah, I really feel like now I've actually got the time. I kind of got everything I needed to do. I kind of got out of the way straight after Kona, after Nice, sorry, like all the kind of sponsorship commitments and stuff, or traveling to meet, and also just celebrating a bit, enjoying
Yeah.
life. I got all that out of the way for 3 or 4 months, after Nice, which means that yes, I can't peak. I can't peak in March, but yes, and now I feel like yeah, I'm on a very good trajectory. Can't pronounce it, and yeah, I think it will be next few months will be fun.
That's sweet. And so in that building process, obviously the Ironman that you're doing this year, as you said, you're training for Vittoria Gasteiz. Is there anything specifically that you're trying to kind of get in the tool chest out of that race for these, future Ironman or bids at World Championships?
Yeah, I think I want to race at the level I know I have in me. I think I've got some numbers in me that I haven't yet had managed to express in racing. I was very very fit at the start of last year, leaning into Ironman Lanzarote and stuff. And the race didn't go at all to plan. And when I got back, I found out that I had like a liver infection, which kind of explained why I wasn't taking any of the carbs that were going in. And so yeah, I feel that yeah, I really want to race my own race. But that's becoming more and more difficult because now the density is really high, and I could quite easily drag along another 10 guys that probably run faster. So yeah, making sure I have a really strong bike. As I said, I think I'm easily capable of holding a much higher power than I have done in my previous Ironmans, or at least training shows that. And yeah, the running is it's been a very consistent but slow progression. I'm gaining a minute or 2 minutes every year. If it can be 3 minutes, then that's great. But yeah, we need to look at it realistically, and yeah, I mean, I'm not suddenly going to run like Patrick Lang. I just have to play with my own cards, and that's what I like about the sport. The sport's very honest in that way. I believe that everybody kind of comes to the game with their strengths and weaknesses, and that nobody's born to do all three. And the closer you can kind of train your body to be good at all three, then obviously you become good. But yeah, I just that's always what attracted me towards long distance triathlon, is that I just feel it's a very very honest sport. I don't think, yeah, as I said, I don't think anyone's born to be an Ironman World Champion, but if you work really hard at it, you can become it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you've shown that you've put in the hard work, and I think also, I mean, this belief that you have and that you've been able to develop with the team around you and your dad and everybody else is like pretty extraordinary for somebody your age, right? To like know that like before Nice you were going to win, right? And like you have this belief that if I put the work, like it's easier to put the work in if you have that belief, right? Because you're like dishonoring that reality that's down the road if you don't put that work in, right? To an extent.
Yeah. I think in Nice, it was actually kind of the team around me had a lot of faith and stuff, and I actually noticed that when we brought out our own documentary, like where my videographer had done like interviews with everyone and stuff,
Yeah.
and it really shocked me in their head how adamant they were that I was going to win. When in my head, like if you ask my training partner, I was saying to him every ride that like, wouldn't it be? I just because of what had happened and had a bad season, I was just like, coming top 10 would be good, like top 10's fine, that's the mentality I went in there with, and I was just like, right, just enjoy it. Like it's Jan's last race. Just like you've looked up to him since forever. Just enjoy the party, right? And I did. I really really enjoyed it. Like there was even like people I saw out on course on the bike, I was chatting to them and just saying shit. And I really enjoyed the day, and I think that's what got me the result I wanted. But as I said, I'm also very aware that the Norwegians weren't there. That they changed the game when they arrive, and but equally, I know that I I'm capable of way better, and I hope. Well, I don't hope. I know that will happen this year in October.
Yeah. And is there anything to learn from that build up to Nice in those last couple of weeks, like where you had, those self doubts to an extent, right? And, we did a pre race interview in Nice and you said you were on the couch or in your bed 10 days prior with
Yeah,
COVID. And I think a lot of times athletes will look at that and be like, hey, I won the Ironman World Championship in spite of having this like downtime and these struggles instead of like maybe because of, right? Like, do you think there's anything like physiologically you learned from that downtime, or was that just like you pulled it out and that was it?
I think. Yeah, I think now this definitely made me realize now that if I can train like I didn't have this belief in me before, but now I definitely do since Nice. I genuinely believe that if I can train how I want for 2, maybe 3 months and show up on race day healthy, I genuinely believe like that there's nobody that can beat me. That's a deep, profound belief that's happened since then. But then what's difficult is kind of controlling all them variables. It's like making sure you do have 3 perfect months of training,
Right.
and waking up and feeling healthy. And and then all the variables during the race. Whether it's making sure you don't have a flat tire, or making sure you don't miss all your bottles, etc., etc. So yeah, it's there's still variables in our sport, and that's what makes it exciting. But yeah, I think back in Nice, that was my biggest strength was to also go there and to like people had almost forgotten about me. Even though technically on paper I should have been the favourite because I came second last year and Gustav wasn't there.
Yeah.
But people had forgotten about me, and I just went in there and had no pressure and just enjoyed it. And I work with psychologists and stuff, and I think it's quite easy to bring that kind of mentality back to Kona, even if I am the favourite, even if I have had great races, if I have a load of great races and go to Kona, I still believe I can go there in the same mindset because, like, what have I got to lose? I've already won a world title. I'm the youngest ever to do it. I'm the first French person to do it. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I have a bad day. In Kona, it doesn't really matter. I've got another
Yeah.
few years ahead of me, and that's the real strength. Which I did a really good job of almost switching into that mindset in Nice, sorry, despite actually there being a ton of pressure because like after Kona, I suddenly had like all the best sponsors, and they'd all invested a lot in me,
Yeah.
and I'd like not delivered once in the whole year, and then like it was all resting on this one race that was left, and so, but all that was like I managed to completely eliminate that. So it's just finding ways to change your mindset and look at it in a different way, but. I feel there's just something about for me the World Championships is because it's always been what I've looked up to and dreamt of. It's all when I get there, I'm just so happy to be there and to do it that everything else is kind of like that happiness is like an emotional override for everything else, and I don't think about anything else. And I'm sure my family and I will go into Kona with the same mindset. And this is also the first time where I get to really take my whole family there. Back in 2022, it was just me and my dad, because obviously we didn't have the same financial budget, and
Yeah. A little
this
different.
will be a really nice holiday, should we say?
That's sweet. Yeah. And so obviously Kona's sounds like from talking to you and, inferring that like that's been a focus, since you were a kid, like wanting to get there. And, like theoretically you could think of a better debut in Kona, obviously one step higher, but like that Kona debut was like kind of bananas, right? Like, can you go in with that same kind of like fresh look and excitement after having those results?
No, no. I mean, as I said, it depends on the lead up. I think it almost becomes harder the more you've had good results lean into it. Let's say now I win Vittoria and have some good races and stuff. Then I'm sure I'll be the favourite for the race. And so then you're like, well, you personally feel like the only step that counts is the win, and everybody else around you is. But as I said, I'm not. Yeah, you just have to make a conscious decision of not going there with that mindset. And yeah, I believe that everything happens for a reason, and I know this moment's been coming for a long time, and I just feel like now it's a culminating point in my career where I've also gone back to really the basics, and like I'm really with my family now, and working towards this, and we're all like super invested, and I know that nobody has that team around me, and nobody's as devoted to that one single race as I am. And yeah, so as I said, as long as I wake up happy and healthy, and then I generally believe, it'll be tough. I'll be tough to beat.
Yeah, and I think you will obviously be tough to beat, and I think it's got to be a little different though going in with, you were given a leash the first year, right?
Yeah,
To an
and the
extent,
second
right?
year.
And yeah, the second year. So the second year, I don't think they really had an option, right? I think the first year maybe
Yeah,
there was like a choice to an
yeah,
extent from the Norwegians. Like, do you?
yeah. I
Yeah,
agree,
go ahead.
and I found in the whole lead up to Nice, I was trying to prepare for that mentally. I was like, right, what happened in Kona is not going to happen again. Like I kept telling myself, you're not going to come into T2 with a 5 or 6 minute lead. Like there's just no way. And then it happened again, and I was like, wow, I have to make the most of this. And so I kind of just realized actually like I've realised now that actually on my day, like I can in the second half of the bike leg, I can actually ride away from even the strongest riders, like Magnus and stuff. And also when I look back at Kona, and I think I said this almost straight after the race, but in one of the interviews, I kind of believe that if it was just a time trial, if it was just an individual time trial,
Yeah,
I kind of feel like I would have won that race because Gustav and Christian were in completely different circumstances. They had Magnus bringing him back to the front, and then Magnus getting the penalty, etc. And also in the swim, I think I'm considerably faster than both Gustav and Christian swimming, but with the way Kona is, it's just one big pack, and it's very difficult, when there's 10
yeah,
men in line to get rid of people. So I kind of had that belief that if we were just talking about pure numbers already at the time, I could have beaten them. And yeah, so the goal for me is just to make it as much as possible time trial, and I think Lucy had the perfect example of that this year. She knew that on her day she could time trial the race faster than anyone, and yeah, she just wasn't messing around, and did exactly what she'd been trying to do for 4 or 5 years prior.
Yeah, no, great shout out to her because that she's done it a few times, and she did it at 70.3 Worlds, and it was, I think, one of the best 70.3 performances I've ever seen. And it's just like put everybody in your rear view. People are thinking tactics, and then they're all scrambling like 2 miles into the bike trying to catch up, right?
Yeah. But that you notice that with a few, it's like Alistair when he started racing his Olympic career. It was like he would just race to the front, like lead the race until he couldn't, and then Lucy would do the same, and I would do the same, and it's just our instinct and how we are. So I can always go into a race with tactics in my head or numbers in my head, but when we're there, it's pretty simple. It's just for 8 hours try to get from A to B, even though A and B are pretty close in Kona, get from A to B as fast as possible. So I don't know. I don't know if the 6 minute lead will happen again. I think Magnus could definitely be a player on a flatter course like Kona. I don't think he had his day in Kona last time, and having raced him in Roth and stuff, he's definitely a big guy with some strong legs, but yeah, I'm very confident that I can outrun him on the marathon with consistent training. So that's the goal.
Yeah, I think that tactically that's a little different. Talking to you last year, you said you were, I think, a little proud of yourself for like going back into the group a little bit into the bike and then like waiting till later. And I think it's likely that you could have that same lead, 5 to 6 minutes, but I think to your point, especially with like strength and resistance, like you're then putting it in those guys' hands to have to also kind of ride hard the whole time, right? Where in Kona last year, I rode up, I was doing my reporting, but there was nobody doing whiteboard, so I was doing whiteboard for you guys, and I went up to Gustav at I think maybe a donkey crossing, and I held the thing and he didn't look, and I was like, dude, look, and it was 4 minutes, and he it was the most comedic. He literally went in the goofy way that he does it, right? Like this huge face, and was like, oh, okay, well, we need to pay attention to that a little bit, right? And I think he was comfortable and in a spot where they had been riding hard, but not on it all day. Like how much difference is it when you're trying to beat, as you said, the Norwegians, if you can have them working hard the whole time?
Yeah, I think it's there's always kind of been two schools, hasn't there, to Ironman racing. It's like, do you ride within yourself and then you've got a weapon on the marathon and you run a 2:35 or 2:30 if it's getting really crazy, or do you just bite the bullet and time trial it, let's say you have a 7 or 8 out of 10 RPE the whole day and see where that gets you, and yeah, I think this year Magnus, for instance, will be more careful about not bringing them with him.
Okay.
I don't think he really cared as much about that because he just wanted to ride his numbers, and he was saying it was his first Kona, and he thought that they would beat him either way. But now I think he generally believes he's a contender for the win, and so I don't know. It's difficult. Maybe Magnus and me work together. I don't know what the circumstances will be. But equally, it's like the short course guys have got to. Well, when I'm talking, or the Norwegians, for instance, have got to remember that for 2 years, I've been practicing time trialing for 4 hours, and they haven't got that in their legs, So you can't just make that up. And yes, they're very very good runners, but there's just Magnus and me would have put in the hard miles on the bike, so I don't believe they will have the level to follow. And then they'll obviously run very fast, and it's always the same. It's like, will they catch or will they not? But I think the sport's has also evolved since they kind of last dipped their toe into it. So yeah, we'll see. Exciting.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting hearing you talk about Kona and kind of how the world is on the racing circuit these days with, Norwegians, I feel like they're still outliers, but like the fact that, going to the Olympics and then going back to Ironman, like it's crazy that they have the ability to do that. But I feel like you're kind of like harking back to the old school Kona guys, right? Like a Peter
Yeah,
Rees and Norman, like it was Kona. That was like all they cared about. And like that was
yeah.
their focus all year. And they had these performances because of that. Do you think like that's all changed, or like people are going to start noticing that like because you put that effort and that focus in, that if they actually want to do that, like Ben Hoffman is another one, right? Like he's
Yeah.
kind of the old guard. There's not many doing that anymore.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's becoming more and more difficult to do that, and it takes. Yeah, I'm lucky enough to have some great sponsors behind me and stuff, so I can kind of afford to focus my whole race season around this golden egg, which is definitely Kona, or the Olympics if you're racing short course. But
Yeah.
yeah, I totally understand. There's a lot of guys who are in a position where they're not going to turn down like whatever a chance of winning 100k. If it means them racing 6 more races a year. So I'm in a different mentality in that sense, and because at the end of the day, I mean, I'd rather win Kona and earn nothing. I mean, that's not what happens. But I'd rather win Kona and earn nothing than go and come third in a load of races or second in win a couple of other races and earn 100k. That's just the way my brain works. But yeah, so there's definitely the financial aspect, and then also it's just a bit of a risk. Also, I think a lot of people were like, oh, well, I'm gonna rather than having one target, I'm gonna have seven, and then hope that I'll hit one or two of them. But actually, it's just such a big reward when you do commit fully into something. And yeah, like Christian was the perfect example of that with Tokyo. He was saying like 4 or 5 years out that's every morning he would wake up with Tokyo in mind. He said he was going to win it when nobody believed him, and he went there and won it. And he just made it like it became a formality, the way he did
Yeah.
it. And yeah, and so in my head, it really is the same. And whether it's this year, next year, well, next year won't be Kona, but yeah, it's just a stepping stone. But yeah, I don't know. I keep saying the same thing, but I'm just going to go there and enjoy it. So I do really like racing the Ironman World Championships. That's really what I've been put on the planet to do, and I love that.
Yeah. And I mean, you hear people talk like that, and I feel like they're kind of shining on a little bit. Like, oh yeah, you really got to focus on one. It doesn't matter if I win the other ones, but like you haven't won another Ironman, right? So like it's clear,
I know.
like it's crazy that your first Ironman win was World
Uh,
Championship, right?
I,
So like
I,
it's
uh,
clear you live it.
I was just running with my training partner, and I said, I was joking. I said, yeah, my goal for this season is to win an Ironman outside of World Championships. But yeah, yeah. Again, it's like there's this weird thing where everything that kind of I've said since I've been a kid has just like manifested. And one of the things was always I would always complain to my dad like about that I've not won a 70.3 or an Ironman, and he was like, and my mum would always like butt in and say, yeah, you're waiting till the world champs, like, just win the world champs. We'd say it jokingly, and then funny enough, it happened, and it wasn't even thinkable at the time, because to qualify without winning a race is pretty hard for
Yeah.
like to, yeah. So, but yeah, it is what it is, and yeah, either way, what happened in Nice was insane, with the crowds there and everything, and I think even now, actually, I've got the French, like the equivalent of the biggest TV channel coming here. They're documenting the whole lead up to Kona. So I think on a national scale, it's definitely helped triathlon in general. Not just Ironman distance, because it wasn't. Yeah, long distance triathlon was not recognised in France, and now we have a few good guys in the top 10. So yeah, it's definitely great for the future of France. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy how the culture has changed in the last few years. Obviously, that has a lot to do with you. And you're right. The vibe in Nice was crazy. I mean, we don't know each other super well. We've talked, obviously a few times before races, but I've got a cold, dark heart That's just me, right? And I even was like shedding tears when you were coming down that finish line, man. Like everybody was pumped. So it's you've clearly, you know, lit a fire in that country, and it's pretty fun to watch.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously Kona is a very difficult like place to get to. So there are fans, but like Kona is still like renowned for like you being on your own in the lava fields, etc., etc. And then Nice was like the total opposite on the marathon. You know, it was just like it was
Yeah,
heaving. And the first lap, like just before, like as I was the first to set out, like I don't think like all the police and stuff or something had got time had time to get there. So actually they're like all the crowds were like on the like there was I could only see the cone basically in the middle
rad.
of this of the road, and then they were just kind of like moving out, you know, like in the Tour de France, and then they organised it and it got pushed back. But yeah, that first like 2K was just insane. Yeah.
I mean, did it feel like shaking your head make believe, like in that situation you've got all the fans, and even like I was around at the end, you like high five Ferdino as you like go down to get to the finish
Yeah.
line, right, with like a K or two to go. Like it just seemed like this, as a kid, if you're like, how do I win Ironman World Championship, like this is the dream you actually have, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was just as I said, it wasn't. I didn't know you couldn't make it up, you know, to kind of for the Ironman World Champs to kind of be moved, and for me to first like be really actually like disappointed that it got moved because like I
Yeah,
felt like I'd just been like taking my dream away from me, and then I went to Nice to do the announcement actually with Ironman and with everyone, and I remember speaking and it was like, and then I saw everyone like how motivated they were like for the French guys and stuff, and I was like, actually this could be quite a good opportunity here just for France in general. You know, I think there's a few guys who've got a shot doing a podium, or at least like a top 10. And yeah, and I was like, actually, this like it could make a big thing out of it. And then yeah, I remember walking along the promenade with my ex girlfriend at the time and saying like, do you think I could win this? And she was like, I don't know. And I was like, well, I'm telling you, I'm going to win this. and yeah, although if she asked me that a few days before, I probably wouldn't have said that. But yeah, it's yeah, you couldn't have made it up, and I'm just super grateful that it happened. And also, what's good is that I kind of achieved that, and it was great. But I've
yeah,
still got something to go and get. You know, I've still got Kona because that was also what was good about it is that it also like when you achieve. So I achieved effectively my dream in some sense, and I was like for the first time ever, I was like for the next month or two, I was waking up and like not really knowing what I wanted from life anymore. You know,
right.
I had it all, and that was just so I struggled a bit then, just kind of trying to reset myself targets, I guess, and
Yeah,
knowing what I wanted and what made me happy just in life, full stop. Because yeah, I don't know if you can go through life constantly having a goal like an Ironman World Championship, and so also I feel that kind of prepared me for Kona and what will happen after Kona, you know, because I think it's really I've been in the sport. I did my first triathlon when I was 4 years old, you know, so 21 years I've been in the sport, and I at some point I'm probably going to need to like take a break, you know, and just and see other things in life and test myself in different ways. And that's not to say
yeah,
I won't come back, you know, but yeah, I think for my longevity in the sport, I think that's I almost need like a gap year, you know. And I think yeah, the goal is to win Kona and then assess and see what I do. But I think if and when I do win Kona, I'll probably take a year out and learn to run and then come back and just be unstoppable.
that's a scary scary proposition. All your competitors just shuddered a little bit. You're obviously being humble, pretty great runner as it is, but I hear what you're saying, and so I just got a couple more for you because I know you've had a long day. What is it, and what was it about Kona that just grabbed you? And there's like that's the Northern Star. Like, what was it about that race?
Uh, I think for me, I was quite. It was quite unique in the sense that my parents owned a training camp like business, and I was just growing. Like every week, I'd meet new people coming from all over the world doing triathlon, and that's all they would speak about, is Kona. And yeah, so then I found myself watching epic motivational videos, on YouTube. And yeah, I would just binge watch them, and I loved it. I've always liked that kind of last man standing kind of feeling or vibe about the Ironman. Whether it's when you see them crawling or just people really pushing to their limits. And that at the end of the day is really what I love. And if I also was to take a year out, and I'd still be like, when I say take a gap year, like it would be a gap year from professional, like high level triathlon, but I would still, as I said, I still want to get fit and learn to run and do other and test myself in other ways. I really enjoy just seeing what my body can do and working towards that with a goal in mind. And yeah, I guess for me, Ironman was just the perfect image of endurance sport. You have to be complete, you have to be mentally strong, you have to be healthy, happy, everything. It's not just about pure numbers. I felt like, as I said before, nobody's born to do an Ironman. I genuinely believe that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's awesome. And you said some of that, last question I'm going to ask you in that answer, but I'll still ask it. Obviously you have this belief that, again, we could talk another hour about me just trying to understand how you have that innate belief, and that's amazing. And you have this specific goal that you want to achieve. And obviously Ironman is a lot more than just professionals racing at the hardest races in the world. It's the amateurs out there as well. So what one thing would you give at someone that's, getting ready to train for their first 70.3 or Ironman, and maybe they're fixated on just the fact that it's going to be such a challenge? If you were to take a step back and give like a little bit of input on like that journey, on what they should maybe be thinking about.
I think everybody has their own reason of why they're doing it, and I think it's really important to identify that. Because yeah, as I said, everybody will be doing it for a different reason. Whether it's just to have for some people it might be, I don't know, to have a little bit more balance in their life. It might be their form of meditation away from work. It might be, I don't know, it could be to make their parents proud, or etc. etc. The list goes on. But when you really identify what it is that makes you tick, then it kind of becomes easy. You kind of your reason why is much stronger when you know what it is. And yeah, so I would say that, and then just kind of also, when there are moments of stress or doubt, also just taking a step back, and realizing that actually it's not a big deal if you do DNF, or it's not a big deal if you don't perform how you want. In the grand scheme of things, you're healthy and fit and can be on the start line, or not, but train, and I think that's already a privilege. So yeah, my first tip would be really identify why they're doing it, why they're challenging themselves. And then the second thing is, when it gets tough, just kind of like take a step back and actually realize that you're already in a pretty good spot.
That's perfect. And everybody listening we should hear pens on paper, right? Like write that down. That's worth something. Sam, cannot thank you enough for being on our first episode of IRONMAN Insider, presented by Maurten. And man, best of luck at Victoria Gasteiz, and can't wait to see how you shake things up again in Kona.
Thanks very much, Matt. See you guys.
Great stuff from Sam. No surprise there. Dude's a legend. Always has great stuff to say. If you didn't write down everything he said, record, go back, write that stuff down. There's a lot of gems in there. That dude's internal belief and how he gets that and how he trains behind that is crazy impressive to me. So again, thanks, Sam, for coming on. That was sweet. We talked about Ironman Pro Series is going to be something that we're going to be focusing on here, just giving updates, and obviously talking to athletes that are going to impact those races as well. But this last weekend, we definitely had a big shakeup in the Ironman Pro Series on the women's side, with Jackie Herring doing her first Ironman since 2015, and she won the Women's European Championship in Hamburg, and with a 2:52 run. Hello, Jackie. We see you. Good job. Super stoked. And, I know she was a little nervous going back to that iron distance, but she crushed it. And with that moves her into second place, just behind the new leader who also raced in Hamburg, Vanilla Langridge, but just 212 points separate those first two. So super tight racing on the women's leaderboard. And we had third position for, I believe it's, Danielle Lewis is in third place now. She's a little bit further behind than those two athletes, but it's tight racing, and you have to look at things like, she's only raced one full distance race so far to Fanella's two. So like things are really going to start shaking up. So make sure you keep watching the Ironman Pro Series races and watching that leaders board continue to change throughout the season. And we'll have all that for you here on the Ironman Insider presented by Maurten. And on the men's side, no changes since Chattanooga, but that was a crazy race. Matt Hansen did a Matt Hansen thing, what he does, and he ran through the field from way back and was able to catch just in the last few K a lot of his competitors and get to the lead and win that race and put him into the series lead as well. So he's in the lead in front of Patrick Lange, who's just 148 points behind, and Jackson Laundrie sits in third place, another 1440 behind Patrick. So those two athletes are pretty high up. But again, you got to look at kind of the distance races that they've done and how many races they've done. Those things will start to kind of change as the season goes. So keep an eye on that space. Our next races on the series will be Ironman 70.3 Boulder this upcoming weekend, and Cairns Airport Asia Pacific Championships Ironman Cairns weekend after that. And so super excited about those two races. They're going to be hugely important to the series. I'm actually going to be on the ground showing you guys what happens kind of behind the scenes in those races as well. But keep your eye on this space and the rest of Ironman's outlets to keep an eye on what's going on in the Pro Series. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, please like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to this podcast. If you're sitting on the trainer, you can also watch this podcast as video on the Ironman Triathlon YouTube channel. So head there if you want to do that. And to stay across all the latest Ironman Pro Series news, follow at Ironman Tri on Instagram and check out proseries.ironman.com for standings, athlete bios, episodes of A Fighting Chance, replays of races, and more. And got to give another shout out to our presenting sponsor, Maurten, the official sports performance nutrition partner of the IRONMAN Global Series. And in 2023, both Sam Laidlow and Lucy Charles-Barclay fueled their world championship victories with Maurten's Hydrogel technology. And it's the innovation that enables athletes to consume more carbohydrates at race intensity with less risk of stomach discomfort. And all Ironman athletes have access to Maurten Hydrogels and solids on course in 2024. And well, there you go. Thanks so much again for tuning in to our first Ironman Insider podcast presented by Maurten. I'm so excited for this season ahead and this opportunity to chat with all these amazing athletes and dig deeper into what makes Ironman athletes tick across all levels. And, pros, amateurs, we're going to talk to everybody and we're going to get inside what makes the Ironman athletes tick. I'm your host, Matt Lieto. Thanks for tuning in.